They saw a plain uniform and scuffed shoes. They saw nobody. They had no idea they were about to put their lives in my hands, and that I was the only one who could save them. The air in Ethel tasted like money. It was a thick, cloying mixture of expensive truffle oil and the kind of unearned privilege that clings to the back of your throat. The sound was a symphony of the elite. The sharp clink of crystal glasses, the murmur of conversations about stock prices and summer homes in the Hamptons, and the brittle laughter that never quite reached anyone's eyes. To me, it was all just noise, data points to be filtered and discarded. My job was to move through it unseen, a ghost in a starched white shirt and a slightly too tight black skirt. My uniform was both my armor and my invisibility cloak. Tonight, the noise was concentrated at the VIP table in the center of the room. A man I mentally nicknamed Mr. Rolex leaned back in his chair, the gold of his watch catching the light from the chandeliers that hung like thousands of frozen tears. His real name was Harrison, a hedge fund king whose arrogance was as tailored as his suit. As I approached to pour the wine, he held up a hand. "Careful with that bottle," he sneered, his voice loud enough for the whole table to hear. "It's a 98 Lafite. You couldn't afford to spill a drop." His wife, Isabel, draped in a dress that looked like liquid gold, let out a high-pitched giggle. My heart rate didn't spike. My breathing didn't hitch. I just felt a familiar, bone-deep weariness. I'd faced real arrogance, the kind that stares you down the barrel of a gun. This was just a performance. "Of course, sir," I said, my voice a flat, calm surface he couldn't scratch. As I endured his condescending gaze, my eyes drifted to the corner table. James Colton sat alone, the billionaire whose presence seemed to suck all the oxygen out of his immediate vicinity. My manager, Marcus, had warned me earlier, "Stay clear of his table. He doesn't need you tripping over him." But Mr. Colton wasn't like the others. He wasn't preening or performing. He was watching, his eyes methodically scanning the room like a chess master surveying the board. For a split second, his gaze met mine, and I felt a jolt, not of judgment, but of recognition. It was the look of someone who actually saw. It was unsettling. Later, by the bar, the hostess Tiffany cornered me. She was twirling a strand of blonde hair, her lips curled into a practiced sneer. "You know, Ava, you should really smile more. You're bringing down the vibe. You look like you just rolled out of a shelter." My hand instinctively went to my apron pocket, my fingers brushing against the worn edges of a faded photograph tucked inside. It was a picture of my unit, smiling under a harsh desert sun. I thought, she has no idea that I've seen more sorrow than she's known joy in her entire life. Outwardly, I just gave her a level look. I'm here to work, not to perform. My calm only seemed to fuel her contempt as she flounced away. The world changed in a single violent moment. The grand oak doors of Ethel didn't open. They exploded inward, slamming against the walls with a deafening crack. The symphony of clinking glasses was replaced by the sharp, discordant sound of shattering crystal and a chorus of high-pitched screams. But for me, the clearest sound was the heavy, rhythmic thud of military-style boots on the polished marble floor. 1, 2, 3. 3 hostiles. Chaos erupted. People scrambled, diving under tables like dominoes falling in a line. Expensive dresses dragged through pools of spilled wine. Mr. Rolex yanked Isabel to the floor with a grunt, his face a mask of disbelief. All around me was a tidal wave of panic. But I stood firm in the center of it all, a tray of empty glasses balanced perfectly in my hand. Panic is a virus. It's contagious, spreading through a room faster than any disease. But I've been vaccinated by fire and fear. My body knew what to do before my mind even caught up. Assess the threat. Identify exits. Control your breathing. It was an instinct carved into my very bones. The leader, a stocky man with a jagged scar bisecting his left eyebrow, stormed towards me. His gun was raised, but I saw the slight tremor in his hand, the way his eyes darted around the room. He was nervous, not a stone-cold professional. That made him unpredictable, but also vulnerable. He stopped a few feet away, his gun aimed squarely at my chest. "What's wrong with you?" "Get on the floor," he barked, his voice rough. I didn't move. I just watched him. From under a nearby table, I heard a venomous whisper. Is that waitress insane? She's going to get us all killed. The fear in the room was beginning to curdle into blame. It was all directed at me. They didn't see a person. They saw a problem, an obstacle to their survival. The barrel of the gun was now inches from my forehead, a cold, dark circle of steel. The air grew thick, suffocating under the weight of 100 silent judgments. The whispers from beneath the tables grew louder, sharper, each word a tiny dagger. Don't be stupid. He'll shoot you. Mr. Rolex hissed from his hiding spot, his voice shaking with a mixture of fear and his usual sneering contempt. It was as if my refusal to obey was a personal insult to him. Isabel, her face twisted in a mask of terror, shrieked, "You're going to get us all killed, you worthless girl." The crypto bro, Kyle, who'd been laughing at my expense just minutes before, muttered, "Don't drag us down with you, you moron." Each insult washed over me, but it didn't penetrate. In that suspended moment, a memory flashed through my mind, crisp and clear. I was in Kandahar, pinned down by sniper fire. My commander's voice crackled through the radio, calm and steady amidst the chaos. In the most confusing moments, Carter, he'd said, "Your calm is your greatest weapon. Hold the line." They saw my stillness as defiance, as arrogance, as stupidity. They wanted me to kneel. They wanted me to cry. They wanted me to break, to prove that their initial assessment of me, a worthless, invisible servant, was correct. If I crumbled, their world would make sense again. But I couldn't. It wasn't about them. It wasn't about proving anything. This was about survival. My survival. And the survival of every person in this room, whether they deserved it or not. I took a slow, deliberate breath, letting it out gently. My focus narrowed, locking onto the man in front of me. The noise of the room, the whispers, the fear, it all faded away until only the mission remained. I would hold the line. My body moved before my mind gave the command. It was muscle memory, a dance I'd practiced 1,000 times in training. I shifted my weight, a subtle pivot to my left, moving my head just outside the direct line of fire. Before the man could process the movement, my hand shot out, grabbing his wrist. I felt the delicate bones and tendons beneath his skin. I twisted hard. There was a sharp crack, and the gun clattered to the marble floor. My elbow followed through in a fluid arc, connecting solidly with his jaw. He dropped like a sack of flour, unconscious before he hit the ground. The tray in my other hand didn't even wobble. I calmly placed it on a nearby table, as if I were simply clearing a course. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The other two robbers froze, their confidence shattered. The second one, a lanky man with twitchy hands, broke from his shock first. He charged, screaming, "You think you're a hero, bitch?" From behind a chair, I heard a woman in a gold dress shriek. Who does she think she is? Some action movie star? My mind answered her silently. No, I'm just someone who wants to live. I ducked under his sloppy, panicked swing, spun, and drove the heel of my foot into his stomach. He flew backward, crashing through a glass-topped table. The sound of it shattering was louder than a gunshot. The third robber was different. He was smarter. He didn't rush. He pulled a knife, the blade catching the chandelier light. He moved toward me slowly, deliberately. "You're dead," he growled, lunging low, aiming for my ribs. This was a different kind of dance, one of blades and feints. I sidestepped, my movements fluid. I caught his wrist, using his own momentum against him, twisting it until the knife flipped from his grasp and into my hand. I slammed him to the floor. His head hit the marble with a dull, final thud. It was over. 15 seconds. 3 men down. The room was plunged into a deafening silence, broken only by the groans of the men on the floor and my own steady breathing. I stood over them, the knife held loosely in my hand, my gaze sharp enough to cut steel. The wail of sirens grew closer, and minutes later, police officers swarmed the restaurant. As the guests slowly emerged from their hiding places, their fear of the robbers was replaced by a new fear of me. Their whispers started again, now laced with suspicion. "She's dangerous," an older man with a silver beard said, pointing a trembling finger at me. You saw how she moved. She has to be one of them, maybe a plant. The accusation hung in the air, absurd and venomous. Marcus, the manager, his face slick with sweat, marched up to me. "What the hell was that?" he snarled. "What have you been hiding? You're fired, Ava. Get your things and get out." I didn't feel anger, just a profound, soul-crushing exhaustion. I had taken off one uniform only to be judged for another. I set the knife down carefully and turned to leave without a word. That's when a grizzled police officer with a buzz cut stopped dead in his tracks. He lowered his radio, his eyes wide with disbelief. "My God," he breathed, his voice carrying across the silent room. "Sergeant Ava Carter? I thought you retired." Every head turned. Every eye was on me. I gave a single, tired nod. "I just wanted a normal life, Chief." He shook his head, a ghost of a smile on his face. "Navy Special Forces, Counterterrorism Unit," he announced to the stunned room. "She saved my ass in Kabul back in 18. The shift in the atmosphere was instantaneous and absolute. Mr. Rolex's jaw tightened. Isabel's eyes went wide. Kyle stared at the floor, his face burning red. Then James Colton moved. He brushed off his suit and walked directly toward me, his presence commanding the space. The room held its breath. He stopped in front of me, his gaze direct and filled with an unnerving clarity. "I don't see a waitress," he said, his voice low but resonant, reaching every corner of the room. "I see the only person in here who kept her nerve." I suddenly understood. His quiet observation hadn't been idle curiosity. It had been an assessment. He saw the truth beneath the chaos. He extended his hand. "From today," he said, his voice rising with authority, "I'm appointing her head of security for my corporation." His next move didn't just shock the world. In that moment, it shocked me. I looked at his outstretched hand, then into his eyes, and for the first time that night, I felt seen. I shook it. The headlines were explosive, but I didn't pay much attention to them. I learned about the fallout in quiet, indirect ways. A week into my new job, I was walking past Mr. Colton's office and overheard his assistant on the phone. "Harrison's fund is hemorrhaging investors," she'd said, ever since that video of him sneering at Ava went viral. Another time, I saw an internal memo about a major charity gala losing its primary sponsor. The chairwoman was Isabel Harrison. The consequences weren't loud or dramatic, just the quiet, inevitable weight of truth catching up. My new office had a floor-to-ceiling window with a view of the entire New York City skyline. On my clean, minimalist desk, I placed a single item in a simple silver frame, the creased, faded photograph of my unit. I had spent years trying to escape that part of my life, trying to hide inside a plain uniform where no one would see the soldier beneath. But that night at Ethel taught me something profound. You can't run from who you are. My silence was never weakness, and my uniform was never the whole story. They judged the cover, and they never once thought to read the pages. That night, they saw what they wanted to see, a nobody, a servant, someone to feel superior to. But when the walls came down, their money, their status, and their arrogance were useless. They were left with nothing but their fear. And I was left with nothing but my training. This story is for everyone who has ever been underestimated, overlooked, or judged by the uniform you wear. Whether it's a waiter's apron, a janitor's coveralls, or just the skin you were born in. You know what it's like to stand tall when the world wants to make you feel small. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had a moment where you shocked everyone who thought they had you figured out? Please comment with respect for everyone's story. If this resonated with you, if you've ever felt that fire inside, subscribe to the channel and let's share more of these moments of truth together.